Hello everyone. Welcome to Organized Change in the Game Industry with unions and worker co-ops. You are either here for learning more about unions or about co-ops or both. First, a little introduction. As a job, I'm a technical artist and animator, but also I like making Antifa creepypasta, like the Trece Rosas, which is a horror game about the Spanish Civil War and fascism in general. I would like to let the rest of the speakers to introduce themselves. I will just be moderating today's session.
Hello. I'm to do my thing. You should know my thing is probably going around and looking each of you deeply in the eyes and saying, hello. Okay, I won't do that. I won't do that. So, my favorite question in life is to ask people, why are you here? And people don't like that question. But I find it a beautiful question, and I'm curious why you're here, so you can tell me anytime. But I'm here because I'm thinking about work. And I'm thinking about work because I've worked my whole life and I'm completely exhausted. Is anyone else exhausted? Yeah, okay, yeah, we're tired. We need to come to the dream room, we can have a nap. But we need a long nap, you know? I'm here to talk to you about work. I think work is broken. Like completely broken. And if you came to my workshop, I've asked you this already, but I'm curious, what was the first time you were ever paid any money for your work? I want to hear from 3 people. The very first time you were paid anything.
I made a CD for someone when I was 14.
How much?
30 zloty.
Okay.
£5.
£5 for a CD. Okay, that's like 200 Canadian dollars. Okay.
I was working in the neurosurgical ward as a helping hand type of situation for €300 a month.
€300 a month helping hand. Okay, one more. Yeah.
I was partner of an exhibition, and it was €500 for like 6 months of my game being shown.
€500 for 6 months?
Yes.
Okay. and now who works for money? Who gets money for their work? Anyone here not have to work for money? You're independently wealthy. People have lied about this in the past. I've seen it happen. I won't blame you. I'm not going to blame you. I don't know. I wouldn't want to put my hand up either. Yeah, work is broken. We're underpaid. We're overworked. Anyone here work overtime? Work longer than you need to? Even if you're self-employed, like work long hours, you're exhausted, you're working too much. Yeah, work doesn't have to be this way. Work can be any way we want it to be. That's my opinion. We're game designers. We're designers of worlds. I don't understand why we stick with a system that isn't working for us. And they're going to talk about this more later, but just quickly, who here knows what a worker co-op is? A worker-owned co-op specifically. Whoa, hot room. Okay, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, okay? I'm going to let them explain it to you later. Owned and controlled by the workers. And who here knows what a union is? Okay, and again, no spoilers. This is coming later. I'm giving a teaser for what's to come. It's you and your coworkers coming together to make your workplace more human. Okay. So yeah, why are we all here? Why are we here? We're here because work is bad. I started this project. If you don't like the game, change the rules. There's a free comic. There's a white paper also, but you can't have these because I only have 2, but you can read them if you want. About mostly Canadian, but I talked to people around the world about labor. I talked to game developers, co-op experts, union experts, and I asked them, what's going on? Are there interesting game co-ops? Are there interesting game unions? Are there people doing interesting work? And why can't we design a world that we'd want to live in? So in 2022, I started this research. I interviewed and surveyed 88 people with my collaborator, Michael Antione, and we made the fictionalized comic. And then I brought the comic to GDC, and Taipei, and Tokyo, and Kyoto, and I talked to people in Mexico City, and Vancouver, and Halifax, and I've been kind of all over talking to people about work, and preaching at no one, just asking people questions about what is work like. Yeah, we're almost out of comics, so if you want one, take one. And yeah, me, Marie, I like drone sounds, you know. I co-founded Toronto Games Week. I used to work for AMAZE for 3 years, so I have infinite love for the organizers because I know how hard it is. And yeah, you can read the other stuff on my bio, but I'm really happy to meet you.
And the next one, Alex.
Oh, it's me. Shit, I have to turn around and read the damn thing. Hi, I'm Alex. I've been working in games for over 10 years. I've been doing mainly like design. I've also done like art and narrative and a bunch of shit. I happen to also really be into sound and music, just not professionally. So nowadays I get to very lazily stuff myself in the container term creative director, which I have both like, it's hate, but it's better than putting 4 different labels on your badge every time. But I'm here because last year I started the process of starting a worker co-op here in Berlin. One of the only 3 extant ones, as far as we know. Keep repeating that. There's a couple other people in the audience there. Johannes is also with a co-op here in Berlin. So feel free to talk to them also later. Yeah, we're here to talk about this.
And Rüdiger.
So I would do the double title thing. So I started working in the game industry about 8 years ago as a game designer, but I can organize stuff, which is kind of topical for this talk, I guess. But then I turned to be a producer because indies and you do a lot of things. So that's why I say today I'm a producer and a game designer, but like heavily leaning on the producing side these days. And yeah, in the last few years, when I worked my last job, I got really tired of everything, so I thought like, hey, let's all get together and create a works council. And I didn't know anything, and I was like, hey, there must be a union helping me about this. So I contacted some guy that somebody thought I should contact, and that guy then, I don't know, adopted us, and we were just like, hey, let's get more people in, and here we are. So that's what, yeah, I work, but also work on that, and that's really nice and gratifying.
So we can start first with a little introduction of what unions and works councils are. By Rüdiger. And you can start.
And I just continue. Well, let's see, where am I? Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, first the depressing part, the state of the industry. So you might have like read the news sometimes, and it kind of doesn't sound that well right now. There are firings, my favorite word, restructurings, and closures, at least that's honest in somewhat form. Better than restructurings. But yeah, basically the people that are suffering the most from this like shareholder focused, great word again, corporate management are we, the employees or the game workers. And while these members of the corporate C-level class, they go on to fire another day, we stand alone, having lost or fearing having to lose our job. But again, you might have guessed it doesn't have to be that way, so what can we do about it? I mean, I guess you can join a union. We should join a union. So the reason for this is the more we're unionized, the fairer we will make the game industry, which is lacking, of course, big time. Can you give me the next slide? Okay. So, but yeah, what is a union? Okay, Mary already teased it very silently, but precisely. We'll just repeat. So, just simply said, a union is an association of workers in a particular industry created to fight for workers' rights and interests. And unions collectively bargain for fairer working conditions and wages, but can also help you in other ways, which is, I think, often for the introduction, the more important way, because they can help you with specific problems at work, just the stuff that happens. They can safeguard your labor rights, your individual labor rights as well. They can give you legal assistance and advice, specifically important if you're not really rich and can just get the best lawyer out there and pay them before you win your course case. They can support in setting up works councils or union chapters, depending on where you are in the world. One might not exist, the other might exist, depends on where you are. Can help in strike support, that's already some high bar, but it's very nice. And even having educational offers. So, why do we do this? It's because only together we are strong. If we band together as workers in the game industry, we can all contribute improving our working conditions. And this means to solidarize with other workers and thus promoting the democratization of the games industry. Because the more we involve, the more we can sit on the table and actually change stuff instead of being told what to do or have to beg for change. So we can get better wages, stable work contracts, fair working hours for all, but we can only do that if we band together alone. We are weak. And that's just why it's so important to organize as workers. The more of us join unions, the better we can negotiate and demand change. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's the best bet, especially in this system. So yeah, this is the only way we have, or not maybe the only way, but one of the powerful ways we have to use our democratic rights to fairly improve our working conditions and protect ourselves from this exploitation. Another one. And I have last, by the way, which will extend only for some reason. By the way, statistically, industries with a high degree of unionization pay higher salaries, have more secure jobs and better working conditions. Who would have thought? Yeah, But of course, and I just want to mention this because we're probably going to go into specifics sometimes, unions are set up differently around the world, and it differs a little bit from country to country. I already mentioned works councils and union chapters. So like Germany has works councils, quite prominent in Europe. The US doesn't really have that, but something that's similar. Yeah, so like, but the general sentiment of the unions is obviously the same, the one I described. So, and just for everybody who works in, not who is German, but who works in German, just a teaser, the union that is responsible for us here is called Verdi. I'm just mentioning this because people often say like, but we don't have a games union. No, we have a union that is taking on games workers, which is Verdi. So it might be weird because everybody might see a little tents out there. But yeah, so this is the guys that actually help us. And we will have a QR code in the back, and the last slide that will, after Alex and Marie maybe talk some more about co-ops, that you can use to join right now, because this is a nice thing about Germany. You can just join whenever. You don't need to tell anybody. It can be your secret. It's very easy to get in, which is a little bit different from the rest of the, from some of the rest of the world. Also, we're doing a small survey right now to just get more and more, because this is the most essential way to actually properly help workers in an industry is to know what their problems are. And if the workers don't talk to the unions, then the unions have a hard time helping us. Hence, Verdi is doing right now a survey. You might have gotten a flyer, otherwise there's a flyer in the front. So if you want to fill it out, feel free to grab one. It's very important. We also have, just as next to Mary's great comic, we have a bunch of pamphlets that explain everything I said right now, sometimes word for word, again, if you're interested. And also some cute stickers with cats and robots and wizards, and all three of them. So grab them too and spread them around.
They are very good.
With that, I'm done.
Thank you. Now about co-ops.
All right, cooperatives. It's an annoying story of like cooperatives are basically whatever you want them to be, but at a high level, a cooperative can be best thought of as a way of organizing an enterprise or a business where the workers democratically control and own the company. It's kind of the basic form. Now, that can express itself in a bunch of different ways. In specific, the kind of cooperative I'm really excited about, and also the ones that we are, the people in my community are a worker co-op, which is specifically where it's owned and operated by the people that work there. It's very nice. So basically it's like, picture this, right? No, go back. Picture this, and picture the exact opposite of that. Artist's impression, use your imagination. All right, now you can go to the next slide. So I have here a very nice German circle of co-op stuff. Because co-ops might be democratic, but they also use that democracy to create systems of representatives, for instance. So, you know, I work in a very small company, but there's also co-ops that have thousands of members, and just like any bigger organization, you end up delegating essentially through a system. So it might be like all of the members of the company, in the bottom left here, they are a general assembly that makes decisions democratically about things like directions of the company, what's happening with hiring, who has certain responsibilities, all this kind of stuff. And then they will generally elect something like a oversight committee. There will also be some people that have certain responsibilities as part of like what they call a Vorstand in German. And this circle makes sure that there's a cycle of responsibility. So in other words, in a cooperative, I might be the art director or whatever, but if I am not doing a good job in that role, there's actually a built-in mechanism for changing that organization. So if you've ever had a really fucking dysfunctional boss, and we probably have all had that, and it's like, they're never gonna leave because they're the studio founder's drinking buddy or some fucking shit, right? This is a way to make sure that there's like accountability and trust in this system. And we'll get into some of that later on. Next slide, please. Right, and community is really important. One of the awesome things about cooperatives is that we tend to be very engaged in our general surroundings. We like helping other co-ops. We can put time and money aside to put into anything that we think is important. Like we could decide tomorrow that we want to put several thousand euros into doing free programming classes for people that want to show up and do that, for instance. we control the capital, as it were, ourselves. It's our money. So it lends itself to community forming. That's also what we've been doing in Berlin. We have a Discord server now. We have started doing physical meetups, and it's basically the cooperatives that have been founded, as well as anyone that's interested in having a place to go to get the kind of information that gets the ball rolling. And I'm sure we'll talk more about the journey of that later on. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, here we go. So we have like a couple hundred people already now since last year, which is kind of great. The panel last year was sort of the kickoff for this, and it's a lot of positive change has happened since. Bonk. Next slide, please.
That's it.
Here's our stuff. If you want to take photos or scan these and come talk to us online or find us, we'll leave it up for like 30 seconds or something, I guess.
You could just leave it up the whole time.
Oh yeah, shit, it's the last slide.
That's the point. Let's go. Also, so you can look at our kitties cuddle the whole time.
There's a cat thing going on here, yeah.
It's almost like we planned this talk.
Okay, so next I'm going to go through the basic questions to go a little bit deeper into both what's up with co-ops, what's up with unions, but we will open the questions right afterwards for the audience, because we want to actually address your inquiries more than just have a chat here up between us. I prepared some of these questions specifically thinking of one person that could answer, but if any of you feel like you can add to this, please feel free as well. I wanted to start with getting to know a little bit more. So what type of co-ops have you encountered in the wild, and how are they different between them? What kind of structures? Like, could you, for example, Marie, give us a little insight of that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Sorry, I like to move around a bit, and I'm gonna pass this around so people can look at it while we talk. So the only kind of co-op I'm really interested in personally is worker co-ops. The ones where the business is owned and controlled by the workers. That's what I care about. I don't care about consumer co-op. I mean, it's cool. I like getting a discount on my carrots and joining a consumer co-op and buying a card. And I like having shared muscle with other organizers. Like, I am interested, but ultimately, worker co-ops is where my heart is. And in games, when I spoke to different games co-ops, I found they were very different from each other. Some of them were very small. Everything was completely democratic. So it was one-to-one-to-one. We might sit in a room and just talk out every single issue. And some of them, they would assign someone, okay, this is the creative director, they're in charge of all creative decisions, and no one else gets a say at all until it comes time to vote another creative director in. One of them had a CEO, and they voted that she should be paid more than the others. Like, they decided this is what we want, and it was run like a traditional company.
That's certainly a choice.
It's a choice.
It's a thing you can do.
And when you said earlier, like, co-ops can do kind of whatever they want, it's true. I mean, like, co-ops can be evil if they want. There are shared values. I mean, if you look in the comic, you can read about it, but there are shared values and principles of co-ops. But there's nothing really preventing a co-op legally from doing a little bit of evil or having, like, bad values. It reflects the values of the people that are in it. There are some, everywhere in the world is different in terms of, like, how it's regulated, like what counts as a co-op. In the States, any Americans here? Not me, I'm not gonna put my hand up. I mean, I love you, but yeah, every state is different. Many of the states are different. Canada's different. I talk to people all over in different countries. Some places don't even really recognize it yet. So there's a wide variety. My interest is in worker-owned co-ops, where the workers own the work, and they control the labor, and they control the money together. Yeah.
Awesome. Alex, what motivated you to found one?
I mean, look, to put it very simply and dramatically, I reached a point in my career where I can no longer continue making games unless I do it in an environment that respects me as a human being. Like, you know, I started the co-op coming out of a burnout at my previous job, and that was really like hitting a brick wall. It made me realize that I've had a cycle of almost burnouts throughout my entire career, and I wanted to not do that anymore. You know, so what motivated me was, like, I already wanted the people that I work with, and myself included under the cooperative, to own the value that we create. Like, I don't want some person above me that has been placed there by the hand of God to extract all of my creativity and all of the value that I generate, so to speak.
Did it work? Have you escaped burnout?
Yes, because now I have people around me that will actually support me when I say, like, I think I should go home now, or I would like to take, okay, so full disclosure, I have ADHD, and that makes planning and executive function kind of difficult sometimes. And it's like, sometimes I just need a couple hours off the cuff. Like this morning, I just really need to clean my house, and I just need to do that. And I can just do that because I have people around me that are like, okay, you know? So I don't gel with an expectation of some guy that's like, be here for 8 hours, do this. It's not a very human way to work. It's not a very human way to be creative. So it's like all of the reasons motivated me, but it was mainly a health and well-being thing, I think, in the end. You know, I just couldn't continue. I wouldn't be in games otherwise. Like, fuck this shit. Like, yeah.
I feel you. Mary, is this experience familiar to you? Have you encountered other co-op founders that were like, yeah, this is the path, this is where we stood, and this is how we ended up?
The reason I got interested in this research in the first place, as I said, was because I was tired. But it was also because I'd done a research report a few years before on work from home. And I spoke to all kinds of I'm a game developer too. I code, I design games. I often forget to mention that on the stage. But I spoke to all these game devs, and they were all burning out. And I noticed a trend, especially around neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, others, LGBTQIA, queer, sick, chronically unwell people, that they wanted a different system. The system is especially hard on people who are marginalized. It is awful. I don't need to tell some of you how bad it is. So yeah, a lot of co-ops are founded by people who identify as a member of a marginalized group, who have been sexually harassed out of the industry or bullied out of the industry, and then they're building their own industry.
It sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dramatic reason, but I like to see the hope in that.
I mean, it's not a utopia. Again, a co-op can be anything. Like, anyone can start a co-op. But yes, the ones I spoke to were really great.
I guess my next question is already answered, like, would you say it's worth it?
Yeah. Because, like, I mean, I won't go on too long about it, but, like, I think there's a lot of myth busting that needs to happen regarding. Okay, so I want to borrow one of Johannes's talking points from last year, which is really valuable, I think, is that, like, it's easy to underestimate, like, how much sharing burden, if you will, makes things more livable. You know, everyone knows what's going on in the industry and how fucked that is, bloody blah, fuck Phil Spencer, all that stuff, right? But, like, you read a article, I'm an indie dev, I have my own studio, I have had for 15 years, and I don't want to do it anymore because I lay awake at night every time going, like, how am I going to make the employee payments 6 months from now, or whatever, you know? It sucks to share that, to have that kind of a burden and be by yourself and carry it inside, and, like, any work is work, any enterprise is difficult and has challenges and stuff, but, like, actually a lot of shit is way easier when you share it with other people. So, like, and that's not even getting into the fact that you can define the amount of responsibility. I was totally fine in a co-op to be like, I want you to make this decision. Everyone's cool with that, and that's the way it is, but it's like, I'd rather be in a situation where I have agency and I feel like I have a realistic picture of everything is work and difficult, so then why not just do it together and have agency over that, rather than live in this, like, illusion that people are making things easy for you when they really aren't. You know, like, this kind of I hope that makes sense. But.
Are people being convinced yet? Is anyone slowly being convinced by Alex's arguments? I am. I'm being convinced.
Yeah. I would like to move a little bit also on the union questions, and then I'm addressing more Judica in this case. So first of all, what is the difference between a union and a works council?
So I will try to answer this functionally. So starting, I think I will work off from how it works in Germany and then try to compare it a little bit. So in how it works here is that you have unions which are like representing industry sectors. They don't have to be formed out of the companies. So they simply, I mean, we have a lot of big ones. For example, Verdi has, I think, 1.5 million members because it covers basically the whole service sector, and games being basically having a section in it, and you can just join. You just go to the unions, you join, and then you organize within the unions. Works councils are a little bit like what I think we traditionally associate with, like when we hear a union formed in the US, which is shop unions. So like these are chapters of a union in a company. But in Germany it is that the works councils don't have to be associated with the unions. So if you are in a company, you have more than 5 employees in this country, you can basically get together, so like, I want to create a works council, and then they can stop you. It's like, that's where union busting comes in as well. We call it like that, but it's basically works council busting. So the difference is union are like industry-wide representations, works councils are company-wide representations. And often enough, works councils work together with unions, but it's not a requirement. It makes sense because that way you link into the larger industry, but it also means that, for example, in a lot of European countries, there's a low entry barrier to just organize on the company level and already be in a union at the same time and not having the scare thing that everybody has to organize so you can become part of the union. So the failure rate is just simply a little bit more blocked. But basically that's the difference. Works councils are company level, unions are industry-wide. At least that's how it is in Germany. That's how it is in a lot of European countries. The US, for example, simply doesn't have this type of works council. I hope that answered that.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Nice. But can freelancers join though?
In Germany, I can talk for the rest of the world. Yes, as long as you're, as long as you don't employ anybody, you're a worker. So unions will represent you. It's as simple as that.
And another very specific question about joining or not. Can you still join a union if you are a part-time employee but also own a company?
That's actually a fun question because I asked it myself once because I didn't say it, but it said on my introductory slide. I also had a company way back, but I was working at the same time and I was talking to like a union friend. And the answer is yes, you can. They will represent you for your worker, let's say, condition. They will not help you as an employer, but they will help you in the context where you're a worker. So yeah, of course you can join. As long as you're working in any part as an employee or freelancing capacity and you're not that will be represented by the unions. But you can have your own business at the side. They're just not going to help you if you have issues there with your workers. Then the union will represent your workers.
It's a little bit of a conundrum, but...
I think it's always a conundrum, right? It's like, as I said, like unions are not, as I said, co-ops are not perfect, unions are not perfect. These are all run by humans. Like I said, like Verdi has 1.5 million members. This is like a lot of people with a lot of different interests that needs to be managed. We're just lucky that we really got some people that like to work from the bottom up. So there's like, we said like, oh cool, we don't know much about you, tell us more. And they just started to organize us and just give us whatever you need. But eventually, like in any big organization, you will get to like the more structural stuff. But it's not really a union issue, this is like organizing humans issue.
Marie, 2 cents about the unionizing though. I don't know, anything extra that you want to add about unions?
Unions, yeah. People have often asked me about co-ops versus unions. Co-ops and unions, I like to say like ampersand, here we are. Here are some ideas because we're going to tear it down and build it again, right? So in the meantime, we can have them both. A lot of people who I spoke to who were more interested in union organizing were people who had families to support, or they were racialized, or they had situations where they just couldn't go start a company that may or may not succeed. Now, co-ops are much more likely to succeed, just so you know, compared to other businesses, statistically, but it's a risk, and it's not the same risk for everyone. It's not the same if you're 22 and have generational wealth and are feeling pretty good, as it is when you're 40 and have a family support and you're trying to bring your family, your extended family from another country, let's say Palestine, and you're terrified and overwhelmed. Like you might not be able to start a co-op right now, but you might be able to support a union. So not everyone can start a co-op right now. Yeah.
Yeah, like not everyone can start a company.
Not everyone.
If you don't like it, just quit and make your own company. Sure, that will work well. Yeah, that's the circumstances are make a lot for the context. It might be also that you can start a co-op and at the same time you are working, so you are also part of the union for your worker part of your work activity, right?
Yeah, sorry, maybe quickly just the reason also why we have both topics together is because ultimately there's a shared, goal to democratize work. It's just, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need as unions band together to fight the capitalists. So it's kind of like, this is like born out of the need of how our society is split into different classes and they have different interests and we need to represent ourselves. And when it comes to co-ops, they do it differently, but we also want to create a work environment where we own what we work, we have a say in it. We just do it differently, but that's why we also sit here together, because I think it makes sense to have the conversation together, because we have a shared goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's a humane workplace. I love working. Why is work painful? I don't understand. I love work. I love what I do. I love making games. Why is it bad? Why is it hard? Yeah, that's the goal.
May I add something?
Of course.
I just wanted to say that, yes, starting a business is scary and it's not easy, and many people cannot for a variety of reasons. So, and even with that in mind, this is why community is important. It is much easier to do all those things despite all that was just said if there's people around you that have been through the process that are open to talking about their experiences and sharing resources and stuff. Like, I met Johannes at the Global Game Jam a couple of years ago, and I just offhandedly mentioned that I was interested in starting a co-op, and he's like, oh yeah, Ramo. It was like, weirdest fucking, yeah. But Johannes helped us so much in finding out who to talk to, which organizations to go, what we could expect, all this stuff. So having some people in the community can really help, with respect, of course, to all that other stuff, which is reality, of course.
Yeah, I want everything. That's why I'm here now. I have a question for all of you, so maybe, I don't know, Marie can start with this, but why would you personally recommend these democratic ways of governance in a company? Either or both.
Help. Help. I'm always like, wait, do I believe in democracy? Oh no, this is welcome to the inside of my mind. I'm on something really strong, and then why? Okay, I want to feel okay, and I want everyone around me to feel okay. So my interest is exploring the structures that will make that happen for us. Right now, I'd much rather be voting with other people on what happens to us than have any single boss telling me what's happening to me. But I'm also open to new ideas and other ways of doing things. Yeah. I don't want someone else to be in charge.
That's a good answer.
So I guess I will continue. I feel like it's like double answer. One is I think that if now a less important one would be an individual one. Of course, I want to have a nice working environment where I'm at. That's the ultimate thing, but it's also like I want it for everybody, because I know if other people don't have it just around me, but also in the extended world around me, then I'm going to be miserable eventually too. I feel like I have to be a little bit cynical to be like, I'm fine, everybody is fucked up, but I don't care. So this is kind of where the motivation specifically for the organization and unions come from, which is like, okay, there is, specifically I feel like it stems from a little political frustration. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but my whole life I look at like this party system that we're in, and Germany went through all these fun little neoliberal reforms, and we're still stuck in it in Europe, just whatever, and you look at it and it's like, what the hell? And then you wonder, how can I change something, and you feel powerless. But with this, it's like, okay, I can do something where I am most of the time in my life, at work. So of course I want my work to be nice, so I want to go there, but I also don't feel like, fucked up when I come home in the evening. But also, it's a place where I see the most tangible change they can immediately make. Through Works Council, for example, but then also through unions, and it's just very gratifying to get people together to share similar grievances. I'm not sure how you feel. I grew up very Christian, so there's this kind of thing. I was like, don't be angry. Just don't do this. But no, fuck that shit. I want to be angry. I want to have some other people to just be like angry with, and not be like, oh no, don't do that. It's like, no, it's very good to just be angry together, not just complain, but be angry. That we know that that's not ultimately won't change anything, but to have that in the unions and just like, yeah, you have the same problem, yeah, it sucks, fuck that, and then find a way to change it. Of course, that's the constructive part, but even that first part, that's awesome. And in that sense, that's why I do a lot of these things, and I would recommend you to do it. And I think that's the good part of democracy. Obviously, right now, this thing is kind of broken, but I think we need to fix it. But we can only fix it from the bottom up. Our technocratic overlords, whatever political system they're from, they're not going to do it. They don't really have an incentive. We have to force them to do it.
I love what you're saying.
But really, I need coal.
Yeah, cool. Oh, shit.
I have something to add to that. I'm gonna be, yes, all that stuff, but here's a fun one. It's actually kind of apolitical and actually doesn't have a lot to do with ideology. Even if all you care about is making more money, you will make more money as an employee in these systems. Like, you only gain. Unless you are a owner-manager and you have equity that the people under you don't, you will gain from this. You don't have to give a shit about any of that political stuff. It's just going to improve your situation.
Remember, by the way, statistically, more money.
Statistically, yes. Statistically speaking.
Correct. We like coal, we like statistics in Germany, I guess.
Statistically speaking, these are based facts.
All right, thank you all so much. We are open for the questions from the audience, if anybody has a question, and I guess we run out of microphones, or...
I would love to walk around. It's my dream to move
It's
right now,
your
so please let me.
Crowd work, Marie, let's go.
Hello, can you talk about money?
Yes.
You talk about money.
Yeah? What do you mean, though?
So, all those people who are having a hard time, we come together. We go away from the companies that underpay us, and we say, yes, but we don't have the money yet. So how do we get to the money part?
Great question.
I can really only answer in the route that I took personally, because, yeah, it's an issue. The one thing I can say before I get into that is that a worker co-op is completely compatible with the sort of like routes that people tend to take with indie games, for instance. It depends a little bit, like, for instance, let's say I wanted to get a publishing contract with somebody, right, for a game I'm making. I would just sign a separate document with them that lives outside of our arrangement as a cooperative. Like, they wouldn't get a seat at the worker table and get like a share in the enterprise or something, but you just write whatever your arrangement is off to the sides, and that way things stay compatible and nice and clean. The route that we personally took is twofold. So we had a little bit of time from like unemployment, frankly. Like, I got laid off and I had my burnout and all that stuff, you know, so we got our shit together. It is, like many creative industries, very network dependent, I think. We had enough of a network that we were able to, after considerable amount of trying, get like some client work as a studio that is like kind of okay. And we went via the Medium board to get some prototype funding. We did take advantage of the opportunities that Berlin has in this case. And it's like, I'm very thankful they exist, because it isn't easy to have no money and set this stuff up, right? But thankfully people want to help around you. Like, the people at the Medium board are very friendly, you know, and I think a lot of people are ready for different work narratives, so I guess it also works in the favor, but yeah. So it's like combination of the regular routes one might take to get games funding or to get studio funding. Certainly if you're very senior in the industry, maybe you can just straight up do what all these dudes from like Blizzard do, where they're like, we're gonna make a studio, and then they just do whatever their, you know, money arrangement is or whatnot. And public funding, this kind of thing. But it's actually just the same struggle, except you're not doing it by yourself because you're wearing like a CEO tag or whatever it is, right? Yeah, that's my route. I know it's a messy answer, but reality isn't clean in this case, you know.
Rich parents.
That helps,
There was a
yeah.
lot of that. There were a lot of rich parents, rich grandparents, inheritances. Yeah, generational wealth from suspicious sources. But young people who want to do something different with it, you know, people who want to build something. Public funding. Partners who worked in tech. People who worked in tech and then left tech and got to do this. A lot of quietness around who had money and who didn't. Yeah, and sometimes, yeah, public funding, living in a country where there's good public health care, supports. Quebec is amazing. We have something called Réseau Co-op, and they support you, help you get grants. You know, it's not perfect, but yeah, rich parents. It's in the comment. That's why I put it in the comment.
Frankly, other co-ops, like we have a bit of a dream. We have a dream in our community that eventually we might make a co-op publisher. It's like a cooperative of co-ops. We can just choose, like let's say you want to apply to Medium Board, right? But you don't have the 10 grand that you need to do the actual offset for the loan that they give you or whatever. We could as a community just decide to give that money to people from the money that we've made. For instance, this is also something I'm excited about doing. It's helping other people seed their projects and stuff.
Yeah, maybe, so I love talking about money, but now a lot of stuff was already talked about. Like,
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's like I don't have to say it myself, but I want to put in, as we talked about the company route, I want to bring up the unions as well. Like one thing that like definitely is like on the table to talk about is to influence how, for example, public money is granted to things and put some conditions on it. For example, we just said like here in Germany, we have a bunch of public fundings, which is nice, but they don't really raise with inflation. That would be a nice thing if it's like, you know, like actually goes up over time, because like it's now the same as it was 7 years ago, where I'm just like, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that happened to money in that span of time. But anyway, so like you can do fractionally less with it now. It would be nice to have some push on that one. And that can be done with like, you know, it can be done through lobbying, but it can also be done with that, for example, unions is like, hey, if public funding, so technically tax money is given to companies, then there should be certain standards. For example, you know, like there's a minimum of pay that everybody needs to get if you use this money, and then you can link that to like, oh, that also means there has a minimum amount of funding that these people have to get, and the percentage is also, this is a grief of mine because I come from a family that has no money, so I've had some rich friends, so like yes, that thing helped, or I can run around baked for 500 bucks from 20 people, that also works, a little annoying, but works. But nicer would be if it's just like, oh, I apply for a thing, that's a cool project, here is the money, and then maybe we check in on you that you don't run away and I don't know, buy a lot of whatever, Coke or something. That would be completely fine, and I think way more fair than this whole thing like, oh, we give you 80%, but the other 20% you have to have, that shows your commitment. I'm just like, I'm poor, what commitment do you want from me? Like, should I mean, 20K, we, for example, have
Wear a cardboard sign.
Yeah, it's like, that's always ridiculous to me, but this is something that like, that has to be pushed from the people. It could be, for example, what a union could do if you asked for it. Like, hey, maybe we can influence these things and kind of try to get a better deal out of public funding, how tax money is actually used. Yeah.
I do want to add one more thing, if that's okay. I don't want to like overdo it, but it's worth mentioning that the cooperative form in Germany, at least, has like even better liability protection than the GmbH does, which is like the general business form here. So, I mean, Germany has had cooperatives since like the dawn of time. They're just not, it's such a like common fixture that people don't see it. And specifically in tech, it's not there because all of this is like inherited Silicon Valley like tech bro culture, right? But it is just a pretty well respected business form. So like if you have a good business case, you can get a regular ass business loan from a bank and you have the same liability coverage that a normal business would have. So if you go under, it's too bad, but you're not going to be personally in the hole for that, right? It's worth mentioning, I think.
Where's the next question?
Many questions over there. Yes, hand was up before.
Okay.
Or not.
like, hello, thank you for being here and talking about this. It's really nice. I have, let's say, a personal experience that I would like to share, and maybe you would have something to say, I guess. I am angry and confused about my work and work conditions. And I feel very alone because I've tried to reach out to my colleagues, like in different circles. I have multiple jobs, of course, because I need to pay my bills. And we only really get to the part where we are angry and like complain about stuff. And I have had an opportunity to like organize a bit with like an adjacent group, I guess, that doesn't, however, like understand my specific like workplace. And I tried to like introduce this organization to my immediate colleagues, and I sometimes get ghosted, or you know, people don't really react to that, and I don't think that I am being very radical or like too pushy. I just try to like open up a conversation and be very like, I understand you, this is horrible, it sucks. Hey, I heard these people have some solutions, like we could maybe try something, but I never got anywhere like farther. Have you had this experience, or like should I just do it anyway on my own for now and maybe?
Are you a game designer?
I am a game developer, and also I have experience from academic circles.
Okay. A lot of the union organizers I spoke to sounded like game designers. They found the problem first. They talked about pain. They really spent a lot of time talking to workers about their pain and what their personal pain and suffering was before guiding them to the solution. This is I'm going to pass it on to them because I think they have more to say, but I feel like making sure the problem is visible, the desire is there, the itch is there before you try and solve it is key. And going it alone sounds hard. And you're not angry alone, you're angry with us. Everyone in this room is angry too, so I don't know if it helps, but I'll pass it to my friends on the stage.
Yeah, maybe I picked that up. And so like, first the answer was like, have you experienced something like that? And the answer definitely is yes. I think I haven't been ghosted yet, and if otherwise I might be ignorant to having been ghosted, it might be completely possible. But I have some friends that are dear friends of mine, which I try to get into this conversation. I'm just like thoroughly resistant to it, and I think what helped me to stay sane most of the time, sometimes I just can't help myself, but is to not really hold it up against them, because I mean, originally I'm an historian, so whenever I try to find reason in anything, I just look back in time. So, and then I look, and I don't have to look far, but like just the general, I go back to my political thing from before, general political direction the West has gone through in the last 30, 40, 50 years explains a lot why like people have been very much taught to isolate themselves and fend for themselves, and it's like you make your career, you find your career, you find your dream, etc. And like although we all here we band together to a degree, the game industry is phenomenally connected, but sometimes we just don't realize how we could use that differently from just, you know, networking and getting a better job. But this is, I think, the mindset that we have all been pushed in. I'm including myself in this, which is kind of holding us back. So what helped me sometimes is trying to empathize with this, before that, as Marie probably said, like finding the pain, is to saying like, okay, I don't say like, hey, here's the problem and here's how we find a solution, but like, you linger on that point and like bring the solution softly up. If you see there's resistance, also it helps to kind of like collect if you get counter arguments, if you don't get any, that's obviously harder. If you get counter arguments, just collect them. It's obviously really hard to do that alone. This is kind of like stuff, for example, that union organizers teach you. They say like, hey, when you talk to people, make a list of the arguments that you get, the worries that people get, even the counter arguments they have, so like you can collectively kind of find an idea to deal with this. But yeah, doing it alone, really hard. It's just, I want to say like, don't give up or some, you know, like thing, but I know how hard that can be if you're completely alone. But I guess that's the best I can give with it on like an emotional basis. Yeah, it's like, the people that ghost you, I would say there's some problem going on that might have come up anyway. I don't want to say your friends that might be bad or something, but like, you know, it's like, it's not really their fault. It's like, we have been taught this behavior over and over and over again. So I try to not hold it to people individually and just try to like go step by step. But it's a very, very slow process. If you look at any political movement or just like grassroots movements that like really tries to do something from the bottom, like step by step, person by person, without like, I don't know, bringing in the tanks right away, that takes a while, and often it's like, it's really a little, and then suddenly you have like this tidal thing where it happens. It's sometimes really frustrating if you're like before the tide starts, and I can really emphasize this, but yeah, I don't know, like, We're all here, Marie said, like, you're not alone.
You're not alone. Are
So
they
hang in
alone?
there.
Is this person alone? Are they alone?
No.
Or are they with you? With people? Okay, yeah, we're with you. And then yeah, psychology books. Read psychology books. Read about abusive relationships and how to support your friends getting out of abusive relationships. It's kind of the same. Validate, listen. When you're ready to leave, I'm here to help. You know, like this. Yeah, just listen.
I have one thing to add. It's like, it can be really helpful to find people that can put the positive energy back in. Like, all the energy is leaving you towards this thing that's not rewarding you. But if you can find some folks that can help refuel, that also makes it easier. It doesn't fix the problem you described, of course, but like, you know, pop into the Verity Discord and talk to them every now and then, and maybe you get a little bit of positivity back, that it's not all just bullshit in your head or whatever, you know?
I was thinking they should do field trips to your, you should do demo days where you can show them joyfulness and care.
Here's the 4 of us in our office.
Any more questions? Blue hair. I'm the moderator and I'm not even moving.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, what are some of the downsides, downside of running a co-op? Like, you talk about funding, which can be different. You talk about democracy, which can be complicated and require a lot of effort and energy. And what kind of system can you put in place to prevent to help against those downsides and to help against to make the company don't be evil? Like, you talk about some code that became evil. How do you prevent that? Thank you.
Just quick, I didn't meet any evil co-ops. I'm just saying theoretically, or methodologically.
So part of the whole co-op thing is that the whole democracy aspect is in the legal foundation of the company, right? So a lot of people get the words twisted occasionally. People are like, how's your collective doing? And it's like, the thing about cooperatives you have to understand is that you're sort of like legally coerced to be democratic, which I know sounds really funny when you say it out loud, but the stuff you're describing, you write down ahead of time in a document that defines the bylaws of how the company operates. So to the best of your ability, you work with the people around you to essentially create protocol and create norms and agree upon certain things together. And that's in a living document that is one way when the company starts and can be changed over time. You know, you have your democratic assemblies, maybe we should do this a little bit differently, all this stuff. Of course, there is a fundamental human factor about working democratically that you can't get around. There's just generally going to be a higher threshold of trust, you know, if it's not just your employee or whatever. I personally have found that the people that care about this stuff are just generally lovely. So I haven't had any negative experiences. I've never had to bring up this topic of like, what are this guy's like shit, and we have to, but we did think about that stuff and write it down, like what we would do and what the process would be. And here there are organizations that sort of validate the co-op founding process that also review all that stuff and kind of like help you out with that and feedback and stuff. But yeah, you can't ultimately get around the fact that you have to feel like you know someone well and you trust them and you're bringing them into this like, you know, circle of trust. But yeah, a lot of the contingency stuff, a lot of people have already like thought a lot about. So we also learn a lot from looking at other co-ops, right? How we want to deal with stuff. Again, that's why community is cool. It's like, hey, we're writing our bylaws. What did you folks talk about regarding how do you deal with people that are not clicking well or whatever, for instance, right? You don't have to do it alone. But yeah, the human element is just there. I personally find it to be a perfectly fine trade-off for all the other stuff, but yeah, you do kind of need some like fundamental faith in people wanting to do good things, I guess. I don't think you can design your way out of human nature. That's kind of how we got here in the first place. It's like, I hope this incentive system doesn't do the thing that it obviously incentivizes people to do, you know, like. I hope that that's kind of helpful. I know it's, again, it's very like.
Next question.
Many questions.
You choose.
Partial because
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have maybe more like the questions about the legal aspect of it, or like just a bit of background. So I formed a GmbH with 2 other friends a couple years ago, and when we did that, we thought a lot about like what would be the founding document, like what are the rules, how do we run this, what happens if it falls apart, if one of us is like really turns out to be really bad to work with, etc. Like it was a lot of work put into it, and these days I'm starting to think a lot about like also a cooperative, because I feel like even the 3 of us, it's too little, we struggle a lot, the future is really uncertain, we want to keep doing what we set out to do, but it's more than what we can handle, and I think we really need to band up with other people, and maybe locally, maybe beyond that, but it's becoming more and more clear to me that that needs to happen. And now I'm trying to kind of understand, when you want to form a cooperative, then do you have to sit down again and kind of like create a document for like a bunch of companies that are individual entities, and then kind of like define how they work together, and that's the legal document that again kind of has to dictate what's going to happen in case of like something going wrong. Does it have to be, you know, like it's something that you kind of create with a lawyer too, and it's complicated because then lawyers come in, that's costly, like we don't want to involve lawyers.
We should talk about this. Okay, I have an idea for the questions. You can all boo if you hate it. But I think we should, at the end of the question, which is now, if people have the same question, put up your hand. I think we should gather like 8 questions, and then we can talk to people individually, or like figure out, because there's so many questions. How do you feel? Who relates to this question and also has the same question? Okay, pretty good. We've got about 7. Let's do a couple questions in a row. Who has another question? Questions back here. We can do Mike and Teeny together. Short questions so we can get everyone.
Hi, thank you. Amazing talk so far. I want to ask about like the scaling co-ops, and like I can very well imagine that when you get together with a couple of friends and you know them well and connect, that it works out. But I'm imagining if you want to do bigger projects, maybe how the whole thing looks with maybe 10, 20, 30, 100 people. Have you run, Marie, in any, like, on your search for co-ops in any bigger ones? And like, do you have plans for scaling? Is there like a plan for that, or yeah?
Who wants to know about scaling co-ops? Okay, that's a lot of people. There were only anyway, we'll talk about it later.
We have one here.
Hey, my question is very simple. With the co-ops, how the processes of hiring people and firing people are, if they are heavily affected or not, because you are bringing someone new, will have power to vote. Firing someone is not easy, and firing someone, like, you know, voting them off the island is not easy as well. So yeah. How do you do it? And if you're in your experience, you like how did this situation? Maybe some extra tips you need to have.
I have stories about that. Who wants this question? Okay, you all want all the questions. Is there one over there?
Yeah, I have a question. Hi, over here. I'm not satisfied with just like unions and co-ops. I want a strong workers' movement, like moving towards solidarity and justice internationally. I think I know what union action looks like when unions sort of band together and help each other out. I'm just curious if you have any like war stories or just interesting stories about when co-ops do the same, like when they look outside their co-op and try to link up with struggles locally, internationally, wherever.
I hope someone is writing some of this down because it's in my mind, but nice, yeah. Other questions? Oh, wait, let's vote. Banding together as co-ops. Oh no, you're all curious about everything. Next question.
How are you surprised? Like...
I don't know. I thought there might be some, yeah, next.
A union question.
Hello. My friends and I are angry. And we believe in unions, but we don't believe in the unions that are available to us because of some questionable behaviour. What would you suggest we do?
Vote. Who wants it? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I feel like we're making a Spotify playlist.
How many songs do we have?
Like 6 so far, 5 maybe. Yeah.
Shall we do one more and then start?
I also am interested in this whole topic of work being terrible and it needing to be fixed in some sort of way. My question is, how much of its sucking comes from the overarching economic structure that the studio is placed into versus how me and my good friends are making our game. There's publishing, there's distribution, there's what people expect as the deliverables, and I wonder how much of that plays into the work being maybe unbearable.
So who's interested in that?
And, okay, we'll stop for a bit, but I do want to hear all the questions. Next year's just AMAZE labor.
Fucking hope so.
So we start on the top, right?
Yeah, we started with the legal procedure.
Yeah, also, your question was regarding what happens if I want to go from a GmbH to a co-op, right? I have some ideas, but I'll let you talk.
The thing is, I didn't do that, so I have only like a vague idea, actually, because I just skipped that step. But the fact of the matter is that, so we had to do a business plan, we had to do our bylaws, essentially. It's the two most important ones. Regular ass, run-of-the-mill business plan that you show people that you have at least some idea of what you're going to do. A lot of that you can probably just recycle from your GmbH. If the business plan made sense then, it probably still does. The bylaws, you will probably just, you said you wrote something along the lines of the way the company rules would operate. You would probably just transplant, maybe, Johan, did you have a good answer to this, or?
Hi. I don't think. I see it now. Yeah. So one of the things that hasn't been noted yet is that at least in Germany, if you found a co-op, you have to do it through the co-op association, which will help you founding with everything. They will give you templates for bylaws. They will talk you through business cases. They will check if what you're telling them makes sense. And so that's different. You have people who will help you found the co-op. So you will have someone to talk to. And you can also just take your GmbH and change it to be an EG, which is the German co-op form. So you can actually, by some decision-making process in the GmbH, just change the GmbH to be an EG if you want to. You can switch, you can go to the evil dark side.
Yeah, maybe quickly, switching legal forms is quite a common practice somewhat. Maybe not necessarily going to a co-op, but it's also possible, as Sohan said. But you also said this thing, is it that you have to have multiple bylaws or something that then group together in a co-op? That maybe I misunderstood that part, but definitely a co-op is just from an entity similar to a limited, like a GmbH as well. It's just structured differently, but it's one entity. It's not multiple entities that go together. So in that sense, from the outside, it behaves quite similarly to a classic company. It's just the way it's structured inside that's differently. And for that, you would have to do new bylaws, but probably also parts of the plan that you have in your current one, you could probably take over. But yeah, you would have to do this legal switch, and it's also probably advisable, you would need some form of, I'm not sure if you need a full lawyer, but I don't have experience with it, but generally it's always a good advice to have these people around, because specifically in Germany.
The co-op association that helps you actually has a lawyer that will look at all your stuff. So it'll cost a little bit of money. I don't know, of course, what it would cost to go from a GmbH to an AG. You probably skip some steps, but at the end of the day, you will have to pay their lawyer to look at your documentation. We spent about $5,000 altogether from start to finish, which is, again, still capital. Not everyone has it, but it isn't that much money in the grand scheme of starting a company. Business financing is whack. That's all I'm going to say.
Of all the co-ops I spoke to, only one switched from a regular business. They were in Montreal, and they're still in the process of switching. And it was very painful, and they couldn't find anyone to help them, and it seemed impossible. And then they found a lawyer who could do it, and now it's going to be easy and fast. So yeah, lawyer. But also, most people didn't do it. Many people in games, like as we know, many people make a jam game, or you make a game with your friends, and it slowly becomes established. A lot of game studios don't start out immediately registering as a business. So they sometimes can choose to become a co-op from the start.
I would recommend it. What is the second question then?
Scaling, co-op scaling, right? From over there, yeah. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I can go.
Go for it.
All right. The answer is depends on what you want. Like for me personally, again, I'm really only qualified to give my own experience in this sense, but I can tell you why I feel certain ways and make certain decisions. So for me, I don't have an ambition to have a huge studio, really. I have had my best times in games working with like a handful of people. However, I will say that I think that the more people that my organization can employ in a healthy environment, I think that's a real like benefit. And I kind of agree with one of my fellow cooperatives that feels like we're kind of not doing our duty if we just build a little island for ourselves in that sense. So the way I would handle it is to establish a high degree of autonomy. Like there are cooperatives that have thousands of members and they have a delegation structure, just like you would have in like a representative system of some kind, right? Where the decisions go up the chain. And of course, all these people are elected in a real sense, actually a more democratic sense than real elections in a way. But for me personally, I would much rather just provide the space for people to have a good place to work and let them do their own thing. Like I would be perfectly fine to have my project with 5 people, the co-op is 14 people or whatever the number is, but they're working on something else and they have their own organization and their own like management, and we just meet together and we make sure that everyone's like happy. And so maybe sometimes something really big comes along and we all go work on that, or maybe we grab some of our other co-op friends because we need more manpower or something. You know, it's very arrangeable. But yeah, I think that scaling can work. I'm not really worried about it, but I also don't desire it in like a, I don't need to be I don't need to really like be involved with tens of people personally. But I'd like it if they can work, you know?
Good things don't scale. That's my opinion. They just don't. You scale something and eventually the juice, the life gets sucked out of it. So I think I'm agreeing with you in a sense that I would much rather see many small co-ops, you know, unionized workers. Oh, here's a writers co-op. You know, here's a game dev help you in a pinch co-op. than an enormous thing. It's hard. Once you reach a certain mass of people, it's hard. It's hard to share control. It's hard to feel like you have a voice. Most of the co-ops I spoke to were small, and some of them were growing, and they were doing okay, you know, as long as they stayed in a certain number, but then they would grow, and because of like game dev funding cycles, people would be forced to hire freelancers, and that doesn't feel good when you're using contractors and you're a co-op. It's not a great, I mean, it's in the comic. It's not a great feeling for them, you know, it's not what they want. Yeah, people often talk about, what's that region in Spain, you know, where it's all co-ops all the way down. No, I've forgotten. I've been on the stage for a long time. Also, we went dancing until the sun came up last night. Anyone else? Or was it just me? I'm doing my second panel of the day. Yeah.
Has anyone ever, I have this feeling today where it's like, I'm not hungover, I didn't drink that much, I just went to bed very late, but like I'm over 30 now, so I've had one beer and I've not slept very much, and I have like the fear. Does that make any, it's like everything is just way more upsetting than it needs to be.
Talking about anger.
Like shit, and it's like I'm totally aware it's irrational, but I'm like, I just got the fear today. Like,
I think everything is going fine.
We're
full of anger, but also energy. Spiritually, maybe we're tired already. But
it's very, okay, I want to say I do get angry sometimes, but for me, the labor fight is joyful. It's like weird, impish energy, like breaking the cogs in the machine. I do get mad sometimes.
Yeah. It makes me happy to tackle this rage. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
Maybe one last thing for the previous question. So scaling, I'm also pretty much on Alex and Mary's point. It should be probably for your sanity a limit to it. But obviously we also, and that will come into a later question of the larger economics that we're in. But it might have to happen. But what I also think is very important is that, like in co-ops, not everybody working at the co-op actually has to be a member of a co-op. You can also employ people. I don't like that much because I like everybody sharing the ownership. But on the other hand, there might also be points where people don't want that yet, or maybe not at all. But I think so. Like this system can be also used to onboard people onto the idea of a co-op. So like they're an employee first, but then later once they feel like, oh yeah, this is totally cool. I actually want to vote in when we make decisions, and they can become one. So like. Again, like this comes to the whole thing, co-ops are not necessarily good or evil, and by default, it depends on how you set them up, so this could be also exploited. That's why I wanted to mention it. So this is where a lot of the scaling happens. So for example, I'm not quite sure, but I think Leva is a co-op, but I'm pretty sure not every worker and like a checkout is actually part of the, the upper echelon.
There are laws in some countries against about how much non-co-op worker labor you can have.
Yeah.
Let's go for the next one then.
Next question was hiring and firing processes from over here, I believe, right? I have to be honest, my hiring and firing ideas are not very precise. I'm just kind of a vibe check type person. I mean, I feel very strongly about my values, and I am very outspoken about those values, and I don't filter those values. So I do have a certain degree of faith that, like, if I feel good about someone, it's probably fine. We're all just people. I don't really want to abstract myself into like business Alex or whatever, So certainly I would need to be around someone for a while before I'm like, maybe you should join our co-op, But at the same time, I just see a lot of really nice creatives that want a healthy place to work. So I'm actually not that worried about it, And as for firing, we haven't encountered that situation. We're very small. So I don't have any experience with that. I have faith that we'll figure it out, as much of a cop-out as it might seem. But yeah, I'm not worried, but I'm also just not that specifically prepared protocol-wise. Is my honest, actual personal answer.
The most successful stories I heard about this were systems where you would have people come in and work with the co-op in a tentative, temporary kind of way, and have a system in place for getting them into the co-op or easing them out after if it didn't work, if they didn't like it. As for firing, I did hear some stories, and some of them were pretty hard to hear. Because people go in with a lot of hope and joy. And in the comic I talk about, we live in a world that's burning. It's I'm not going to list all the depressing things, but climate change, Palestine, Ukraine, all the things. And it's hard, and people are sick, we're tired, we're mentally ill. And so all this to say, if you start a co-op with 4 of your friends, one of them may have a burnout even though it's a co-op. And how long can you financially support that? And how do you deal with that when it's your friend and someone that you love? It also might be someone who's bad that you don't like or bad to you. It did happen in the stories, and it was often very painful. It didn't go very well. The firing didn't go very well, but the best stories were ones where people had their bylaws in place and the paperwork so that it was clear to everyone what was happening. Tyranny of structurelessness. Jo Freeman, is this familiar to people? She's a feminist in the 70s who talked about in systems where the structure is just invisible, systems of power can get reinforced and reproduced. So she was saying it's good to have, this is our structure. As we as a group have decided, if someone's not working, this is when we tell them, this is what the warning looks like. I mean, we don't want to put people on performance improvement plans or whatever, but having a structure so it's not a surprise and so everyone knows what's happening.
There's someone in the audience that wants to chip in.
Hi, so also as Rüdiger just mentioned, you can have normal employees, right? And so you can also have a construct of being okay, if we hire you for 6 months, you will be a normal employee, and after that period, we will decide if you will be a member or something like that. So you can, because it is like getting married. So, you kind of have to trust each other very much, and you don't always have the opportunity that it's just your friends and you know all of your friends are very competent and at exactly the thing you need right now, sometimes you will like need someone to be there full time, but it also will be a stranger. And no matter how good your first impressions of someone is, if they turn out to be really weird, or, you know, once you have such a democratic system, there is the danger of like one person really like shitting in the soup. And like blocking all democratic.
You could have picked any carrier for the shit in this metaphor.
You know, but like democratic processes can be very easily disrupted from the inside, right? If you have one person who's really, you know, blocking all discussion, that's bad. So there are very good legal opportunities, and as Marie just said, like just having structure. There's like a saying in German, which only works in German, because contract is Vertrag, and you know, a Vertrag is for when man sich nicht mehr verträgt, you know. That only makes sense in German. So yeah. So contract is for the times where you're not just, you know, having a good time. That's when the contract will help you. And you won't need it most of the time, but it's good to have it lying around.
Yeah, quickly last thing to the firing, because, and I will come from it from the Works Council perspective actually, because one thing that I didn't know, which was first great, because when you have a Works Council, and people, your boss or anybody, you know, of the management people want to fire somebody, they can't just fire somebody. They have to tell you as the Works Council first, and then you have like a week, I think, from the moment they tell you to actually talk to the person that they want to fire and find out what's going on. Maybe you can do something about it. And if they actually fire them and didn't talk to you first, you can reverse that, which is really fun to do. But it also means, and that's the sad part for the Works Councils, is that you will break the news to people that they're maybe being fired. And that brings me to the thing where it links to co-ops. Having a protocol in place that has a check on firings, which is, and that's the plus that you can have within a co-op, and that unionized corporations have a plus on. They actually have, depending on the context of the country, of course, have a hand in this, and you can get like, you have the possibility to maybe veto abuse and stuff like that, because that happens. That thing is on even the small companies and all companies, that's on the table instantly. So having a protocol, having something that might double check while it happens, go through, try to kind of like, you know, make it as calmly as possible, that's important. Also to really find out if something bad is happening to the employee, and specifically from the union perspective, also the first time you always represent the employee. You don't represent the boss, you represent the employee. And that's very important, because normally they're not represented at all. HR doesn't represent you. HR is fighting you. HR is at the other side.
HR is not your friend.
Yeah, exactly. HR is not your friend. Managers. And yeah, so firing is always ugly. It's never nice. It's horrible. It feels bad. When last year and that company was Works Council went through it, where half the company was let go. That was I like only afterwards and realized how fucking stressful this was. And like just imagine this thing, like you sit around with your friends that you work with, and you already know it's coming, but the company is like shutting you up. You can't talk at that, but because everything is prepared in the background, and you're trying to keep as many people as possible in. So sometimes you sit on a table where people decide who's getting fired. That sucks, but it's also so important that the people that have a form of democratic backing by the other coworkers are on that table, because the worst part would be you's not there. And that you can also build in a co-op.
And I just want to say about this firing situation before we leave it, because I said we could make work be anything we want. What if getting fired was the best? What if when you got fired, it was a wonderful moment for you? Because like, why do people get fired? They're not doing their work. They're being mean or bad. Someone made bad financial... Anyway, imagine if it's like, oh, you're not doing your work, you must be tired. We're gonna fire you and you can go on a vacation. Or we'll support you in a house with food and art and a beautiful life until you wanna work again. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, like you're never gonna have to beg me in the German context to like, please fire me. You know? I don't know if people here are familiar with that, but it's this thing where like, you know, you don't get your unemployment if you quit. So there's this weird unspoken practice in Germany when technically you're quitting, but you ask your boss, can you please fire me? Yeah, I would be like, well, I'm not their boss, but we would collectively be like, yeah, of course we'll fucking fire you. You know, like, I wanted to add, I know we've gone on a bit, but it is a very complicated, prickly element of the whole co-op thing. But I'll add that, like, I personally, and this is, again, the flexibility of co-ops, like, I personally made the decision, I think, not to think about the protocol so much, because to me, the core group of people that I'm with is kind of the thing. Like, I think if anyone had to leave for some reason, it might not really work for me anymore, actually. And I think that once we get more people in, we will revisit that conversation.
I just want to say it's really interesting that you say that, because some of the co-op organizations I spoke to said, don't bother being a co-op unless you want to grow or have succession. They said, just be a business that's owned by 3 people. I don't know. I don't know if that's what they said. I'm reporting the research. But it was like, if you don't want to grow or pass it on to other people, like the point of this entire legal structure is to protect the people to come and the people in the future. So if it's just you and your friends, like a co-owned business with the bylaws, is the same.
Can you just clarify how you feel about that statement?
Oh, I want to.
I'm sorry, it's just like, it feels spicy.
It is spicy. I was spiced by it. I was spiced and surprised by it. I think that there's something radical politically about saying, I want to do a co-op. There's something challenging against capitalism. I mean, not in the deepest way that I want, not in the deep, dark way that I want, where we get from its disgusting roots, but so in that way, I think I don't agree. But I found it an interesting statement to make because it reveals something about the structure and like what it means, like how co-ops sit in capitalism. When I was doing this research, I was surprised to find how many bosses would get mad at me. Like friends who were turns out unions are controversial.
What is the price?
But co-ops were less. People were like, oh, cute, a commune? Are you? I mean, they're wrong. They're wrong. But, yeah, so maybe I disagree.
Should we go to the next one?
Yeah.
Yes.
The next one was co-op war stories, so to speak. That's what you asked.
Like going beyond the co-op and linking up the way unions do. Like when one union is on strike, other unions do solidarity action. Are co-ops able to do that? Do you have any cool stories to tell?
I mean, most co-ops like to support other co-ops. Most co-ops want to hire other co-ops if they can. It's part of the philosophy. I didn't see any cool world-changing movements of co-ops in solidarity, but I'm curious. I mean, like I see the discords. There are multiple discords you can join where people support each other, but not the kind of intense. I mean, I would love to see it.
Yeah, I don't have any. Look, here's the thing. They 100% exist. I don't have any off the top of my head. I feel like what we are doing locally in terms of putting information out, educating, encouraging people to consider this stuff, trying to help make this as easy as possible, to not like shut up or moderate our opinions about all this stuff is taking a step. Of course, there's things that will not happen within the context of like democratic businesses, but what I will say is I think that we are on top of a bit of a wave right now. Like I really believe that people are ready to work differently, you know? And it wouldn't surprise me if actually just people making as many co-ops as possible will lead to like a really big change in all of this stuff. So there's not like, I feel like there's something happening that goes beyond just like, we're making a co-op, you know, like there's something coalescing and coming together. Most of the people that I know that are doing co-op stuff are also otherwise politically active, but it's of course not the same as like unions striking together or whatnot. So I don't have any exciting stuff, but I do think there's definitely something happening. I feel something happening.
And I'll just add, I looked up, it's the Mondragon.
Yeah, Mondragon.
In Spain, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's so many questions, but that is a region where there are so many, it's like a co-op land of all the co-ops on co-ops on co-ops, which is kind of interesting. Do you want to talk about it?
Wait, is it, I know Mondragon is a cooperative, I didn't know it was a region.
It's a town founded in 1958. Should we read the wiki together? But it's a corporation and federation of worker cooperatives.
Yeah.
So there's co-ops on co-ops on co-ops there. And there were some complicated things about, I feel like I can't go too deep into it.
I don't want to. The one thing I will say is, based on what I read about Mondragon years ago, admittedly, is that they don't have like equal pay structures and stuff, which I think is kind of a no-no, personally.
Maybe we can take that topic also outside later, because we want to be around later if you want to talk more standing outside. We have like around 10 more minutes and 2 more questions.
Yeah, let's do those.
If you want to... How bad do you want to? How bad do you want to? Show it with both your hands.
What do you mean?
Okay, you really want to.
I have it here.
Oh, perfect. And then we do the last 2.
So, kind of the most radical geopolitical type of thing I could think of was that I think maybe I'm not very good at, like, the Kurdish regions in Rojava and around. A lot of things there are cooperatively organized. But yeah, I'm not too well informed on this, but I know that that's happening. But yeah, so you can look into this. I think the autonomous regions in Kurdistan, there's a lot of like organizing business in a cooperative way. So there's a whole can of buckets, of course. Can of buckets? Oh man, can of worms. Yeah, bucket of worms, can of worms, can of buckets.
A soup with worms in it?
Yeah, soup.
All right, the next question was from you, I believe. You don't like your unions in your area.
Yeah. I mean,
mildly put, perhaps.
Yeah, you said like you had like, we forgot that like there's some stuff that you didn't agree with how they did things, if I got it correctly. All right, so as I don't know which union we're talking about, which region and stuff like that, I'm trying to be general. In general, my experience with, in Germany, I said like they have quite big unions. For example, Verdi is part of like one of these head unions, DGB, that have like, I don't know how many million people in there. Obviously, I don't agree with everything. For example, I feel that they're striking more again, but I think they could strike way more. They could be way more radical, thanks. They could be, I don't know, less inclined to still hang out with the Social Democrats so much, because that didn't go as a bring us anywhere. But they can do that. It's their decisions. And I think, so all of this is also big structure things. And from my experience, with I'm just some little guy, we're like new, industry, so they don't know much about it, is to enter it from the bottom and find like people that are either already kind of sympathize with or know something about your field, or that you trust to kind of like on board to that. This is the reason why I feel like we have a very good working relationship with Verdi, is because we found 1, 2, 3 people that were just like, yeah, I don't know anything, but like, sure, let's do it. Like, it was like, I mean, in a way, it was just, there was this, we were kind of like adopted by this angry Gen Z Xer that's just like, yeah, fuck yeah. You all look like punks, I like that, let's do it. And then you like, I don't know, sites like old German punk bands that half of us don't understand because don't speak German, but like, it's just refreshing. It's just like, he doesn't really, like, whatever is there, we work with, and we do this, and then we go somewhere. And that like kind of created for us this like nice basis of just going somewhere. And eventually we will have to deal with the larger context of like a big union. And I know that's gonna be annoying, like, anything that's, like, eventually goes very large. We talked about it with the co-ops, don't make them too large, maybe that's annoying. Will be there, but like when it comes to organizing workers, eventually this is what you have to deal with. So you have to scale up, but I think you have to find like a nice starting point. And if your union, or like the union that seemingly wants to do this for you is, well, you don't see it, maybe look around a little more, maybe you could find it. And if you don't find it, maybe go to another union and say like, hey, they suck, can you help us? Or like maybe you can help us to like push some sense into them. Like there might be other unions. Like, in the end, it's like just finding an ally that kind of helps you to overcome this thing. Obviously, there's never a guarantee for success, but I feel like this works. And the ultimate, and I think this last resort thing, I would always try to get into the structures first and work with them, and then parallel with other stuff, like we cooperate on the co-op union stuff, which is like, yeah, we do that. If all of that doesn't work, then you might have to start over. But I would do that at the last point, but really try to use what structures are there, because that is, having a network that you can like go into and get some support out is immensely helpful. I don't know how, if we would gotten any here, if these people wouldn't have been there.
I was basically, I joined the union in 2018 basically because I wanted somebody to actually read through my contract. And from then on, I only got support from them. as a migrant in this country, German is not a very easy language to learn, and I'm sorry I still don't speak it that fluently, but like, if there was no Works Council, that can happen independently of the Works Council members to be part of a union or not. At least I had the support that I cannot have individually because I don't have that kind of money for going every single time to a lawyer privately and say, hey, can you read through this contract? Is it all right? I just pay my 1% brutto a month and don't have to think about that, and I don't have to think about if my tax declaration is wrong or not, and as a freelancer I can see if things that are in the contract make sense or not, because freelancers lack a lot of labor protection in a work relationship, and there's plenty of freelancers in this industry as well as in cinema. It was just, even as at an individual level, but also looking at it from a systemic view, is someone coming here to a very foreign language place. It was hard to find that many people in the union that would speak fluent English, but I would just Germanglish my way through. And that was the support that I needed to continue working and learning what my rights were here. And every single time I was talking to another female colleague, I would be like, you can even sign a contract and say that you will never ever have children. It's on them. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have the knowledge, the collective knowledge that is this big organization that is the union. Now I'm spreading the word around, just sign everything. It's gonna be their problem, the employer problem, if you have to sign these things, not you.
I have a comment to something you said, actually. So part of your answer, I got this impression that it's like maybe there's another union that is interested in springing forth a game developer branch, essentially, right? Like, this union is cool, but they don't do anything in my industry, but maybe they will. Is that... Okay,
I don't know if it works.
That's kind of what you did, isn't it, with Verdi, more or less?
They were the deal with software. They just didn't. But when I talked to them, they just said like, "Hey, you're in games, right? Yeah, we always wanted to learn something." So this specific guy knew that it lacked knowledge there, and I was just like, "There's somebody from that industry. We don't have a lot. Latch onto it, and that's really important." That's why I said like we were lucky with this one person. Sometimes you just be lucky. It's in the end, it's people. It's not the big structure. The structure is made out of people, and you have to, either be lucky, like we were, or find that person.
How many questions do we have left?
We have one.
Let's do the last question, and then after the last question, I'm going to invite people to the stage, take a photo, and you can hide your face if you want with this or with the other scene. But I feel like it'd be a great, I feel like it would be a great thing to show that we care. And we're here. Depends how long it is. How long is it?
Very short.
If you have it very short, yes.
Definitely.
It's not a question, it's a comment.
So on the topic of not liking your union, right? And I don't know your personal situation specifically, but I think it would help to think of unions as not them, but it's us. Specifically, if it's a union that is member-led. I'm part of Game Burgers in the UK, and we are member-led, and what that means is the union is yourself, your colleagues, right? There is an external organization. So what that means also is we meet every month, and we meet every year, and we vote motions. So maybe you could, I don't know if that's what you could do, but you could write a motion that addresses the things you want to see changed. And also the elected committee is elected. You could run for that and for the change, but think of it as it's a democratic organization, right? So they will listen to you and you can propose changes, and if it's a reasonable change, if people feel like you, it will happen. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Also, if you have questions about UK union organization, ask him.
Okay, spicy side note, just yes, agreed, yes, and sometimes people have really important good ideas that just don't belong to the majority of people. Like if you're on the fringes of something, other people might not care, even though it really matters to you. It's been my lived experience. So but yes, and that is real, and I see it and I honor it.
The final question was, why does it suck? It's over.
It was more, is it enough to change the way your studio works, or problem, a macro problem that involves the larger market with the way publishers and distribution and everything else works. It's a question of is it big enough, I guess.
I mean, I just want to quickly just answer the easiest answer. Yes.
That was good, yeah.
It is definitely that. I mean, all of these things that we do, we work in a system that's generally not working for us, not in our favor. So we're trying to counterbalance this and break it out, but we are very limited by sometimes by strictly by law. Like I mentioned the European Union, I mentioned Germany, they have like weird laws that just restrict our ability to organize to a certain degree. It also gives us a lot of power, but I think like just restructuring your studio, creating the little perfect world there, that's nice, but it's also strict. It's not the perfect world if the world outside is still, as you said, burning. So this is a little step that might, if done right and if connected with the right people, can us bring on the path that changes something. And I say can because I don't want to sound like I know, like if I just would be, I don't know, whatever president, and then I would just change economics and I would know how it works. I don't believe in this kind of like authoritarian logic, but that's why I'm saying that can. It's like, but we definitely in the end, parts of our attempts to change something needs to target the larger way of how we produce things, which is larger economics. And we don't already, I mean, I can ramble on, but I'm also not an economist, so like it would probably be a little pathetic. Also, we're kind of at the end. But yeah, the easy answer is yes, and we need to do it.
How many sock dams does it take to change an economic system?
Well, they never did it.
Yeah. I wanted to add, it's a continuum, right? Like we live in, our entire economy is based around value extraction. So whether that's disproportionate value extraction in the, let's say, micro scale of an office or the macro scale of an industry, the answer is indeed yes. What I will say, however, is that internally at least, I had a conversation with one of my cooperative members last week where we had a deadline call with a client, and the thing is they've been happy with us every single time we've delivered. And we've been trying really hard to stick to our own values. Like we're going to work 4 days, we're going to work this amount of hours, like this, the other thing. And every single time we head to a delivery, there's this like anxiety that pops up in the back of my brain. It's like, fuck, what if it's not enough? What if they hate it? Like all this stuff. Like we've basically been, because we're in an environment where we can talk about this stuff and actually decide on our norms together and all this sort of thing, we've been slowly able to unpack just how many kind of like toxic expectations we've built upon ourselves. And that stuff also echoes, right? Because if you just do something over and over and it becomes normalized, the same can be in reverse, right? If more clients work with studios that they realize they are happy with, but those studios work less and work humanely in something, then like the normalization process flows in the other direction. And the more people that are positively impressed or impacted by these kind of talks, they take some of those ideas to wherever they go, right? So, like, the answer is yes, but I do legitimately believe that changes at a micro-communal, like, game dev level can have wide, like, butterfly flaps, you know? Yeah.
I also think it's worth it working down here. And also we should strike against the publishers and the distribution platforms, and we should just rip it up. Both, we can have it all.
Yeah, no, do the co-op publisher, like make a publisher that is a co-op of co-ops. There's a balance of like, we have all the impact that I just talked about, at the same time it's also make your own space, right? So there will be a wave of co-ops being more successful and visible, and then someone will make a co-op publisher, and then someone else will, and eventually they'll be successful, and then more there'll be examples, and other people will go, you know, oh, maybe this kind of stuff. I think it's going to happen. I think it's inevitable in a both ominous and hopeful way, in a way. Like, I really think the industry will undo itself in this direction. Doesn't mean we should sit around and wait for it to happen, of course, but yeah.
And if you feel persuaded, look around you. I mean, at GDC, we had a social after the talk, and people found each other. They said, oh, you work at that studio? I work at that studio. If you're interested in unions, I'm interested in unions. So that's something. Yeah, I'd love to do a photo.
Yeah.
No pressure to be in the photo, but if you want to be anonymous, you can hide. But I feel like it's cool to show that we're here and we care.
And even if you don't in the photo, grab pamphlets, that's where we print them. as much as you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Spread them. Do the
Yeah,
survey.
take the pamphlets.
We need to know stuff.
And before you leave,
Hey, Torsten.
they
An angel. An angel. What did you say?
Oh, Romeo, Romeo.
before you leave, because I just want to see when everybody, because it unites as well with the voices, that you play this.
Oh, we play.
Yes.
Okay, let's do our photo and then play. We gotta all have it all.
Let's do it.
Yeah. We're putting our labor slide back up, so you know our labor slide's going back up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'm feeling a lot better.